Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Pointless Top 10, a show where I make top 10 lists out of pointless things. Why are we flying by as pointless statue in Booty Bay? Because inside pointless things are treasure. Let's begin. 10. Number 10 are the Goblin Windmills in Bilgewater Harbor. And when you think of windmills, you don't normally think of goblins, but they do have the big goblin rocket on the front of them, and they're digging into the ground or they're getting oil out of the ground. Whatever they're doing something that hurts the environment and provides the goblins with some sort of resource. And when I was making this list of windmills, I did not expect to find windmills at Bilgewater Harbor of all places, because I was like, oh, I'm going to look at all the farms and all the places that you would normally think there's going to be windmills. But then I remember I was just flying over this place and I was like, wait, are those windmills? Are the goblins really using windmills? And they are. So it is pretty genius by them. I mean, I was reading into it on historyofwindmills.com, which I'm pretty sure is a website that's only been used for like school projects. But it says, before the appearance of steam-powered machines, windmills represented the only machines that could be reliably used for the manufacturing of many materials. One area of the Netherlands had over 600 mills that were used for the creation of paper, paint, gin, mustard, oil, cut wood, and more. So there you go, a little bit of windmill facts and a little bit of goblin rocket windmills, and that's why they're number 10. 9. Number 9 are the windmills located at Garadar in the Grand, and these windmills give me the most primal feeling out of all the windmills. They're made out of like big sticks, and it looks like hay or straw or something like that. In fact, in terms of the oldest windmills, it says the Netherlands have some that date back to the 8th century, and the Persians had them in the 5th century. But what's cool about these Gardar windmills that I didn't really notice with any of the other windmills is that they shift direction. I think because the wind changes direction, and so they're going one way, and then they go the other way. And most of the other windmills in the game, they just go one way. So I thought that was pretty unique about them. I also like the buildings that they're attached to. I think they're very cool, old-style windmill buildings. Although when you go inside, I was expecting to find the actual milling process occurring, and it was really just a storage place, so maybe that's an accurate thing. I'm sure many of them were used for storage, but it seems like normally there is milling occurring inside these buildings, right? Otherwise, why is the windmill attached to the building, Or I guess I mean the windmill blades, because the actual whole thing is a windmill. It's just the blades. It doesn't matter. This is number 9. 8. Number 8 are the windmills at Area 52 in Netherstorm. And there's a lot of questions surrounding these windmills, because I don't even know if these are technically windmills, but I believe they are, because it looks like they're using wind to power some sort of extraction from the earth, but it's also possible these are anemometers, which are used to measure wind speed and direction. But I also started thinking, how much wind is there in Netherstorm? There's literally things floating around like there's no gravity, but then apparently there's wind powerful enough to make these things going around. So I'm like, is there even wind powering these things? It's just there's a lot of questions that I don't have answers to. But luckily for us, this is a pointless list, and inside pointless things are treasure. And so, because this thing is so random and weird, and I don't know if it is pointless or if it has a point or whatever it might be, it doesn't matter, and that's why it's number 8. 7. Number 7 are the windmills located all around the crossroads, and there's one that's got little flags with a big stone base, there's one that's actually just a big house with a mill inside of it, and then there's one up above Wailing Caverns by this house in the middle of nowhere, which was actually on Pointless Top 10 Houses in the middle of nowhere. In fact, I think it's one of the coolest windmills. It's got these big eagle wings acting as the windmill blades, and it's got a little eagle head totem, and then the mill is actually right underneath it. You can see it crushing the grain. I almost said crushing the mill. It's crushing the mill. And even the smaller one is still cool. It doesn't have big eagle wings, but it's got a weird bug man thing on it. I don't know what that is. And then there's just the big windmill house that belongs to this Taran lady that's holding a big loaf of bread. In fact, I didn't even realize that this house does have the eagle with wings as the windmill up top. So I think she does take the prize for the best windmill. But either way, all these windmills are cool, and that's why they're number 7. 6. Number 6 are the windmills at the Earth Mother's Bounty, and these are actually pretty cool because they have these big hammers that they're powering, and they go up and then they slam down, and I imagine they're smashing the grain. And they actually look a little more solid in terms of the craftsmanship of the wood compared to some of the other ones we've looked at, which might just be because the Tonka are very good at wood crafting, or it might be because this is in Legion instead of Cataclysm and Burning Crusade and Classic WoW. There's also a bunch of corn nearby, so I'm sure they're milling a bunch of corn. In fact, I don't even know what milling really is, so I looked it up. I mean, I know what it is, but I don't like know what it is. And it says milling is a process in which grains such as oats, wheat, rice, and corn are dehulled and ground into smaller pieces or flours to improve palatability, reduce cooking time, and create food products. In fact, ground grain was one of civilization's first foods. Ancient methods of grinding can be traced to the Far East, Egypt, and Rome. So there you go, a little food history and a look into a unique high mountain windmill. And that's why it's number 6. 5. Number 5 are the windmills in Westfall, and I think the Westfall windmills are some of the most well-known windmills in the game. I think a lot of people think World of Warcraft, their brain goes right to Westfall, and for good reason. These are like some solid, sturdy windmills. They have cool kind of metal tin blades. I don't know what they are, but I was curious because I was like, well, these don't look like they're really milling anything. They're just spinning and they're standing there. So like, what are they doing? And I looked it up and it said, homesteaders, farmers, and ranchers were no longer dependent on natural water as they could drill wells and pump water. Windmills were often among a homesteader's most prized possessions. The water pumped by windmills was used to cook, bathe, drink, water crops and animals, wash clothes, and more. So these are actually water pumping windmills. So yeah, I never really knew that. That's pretty cool. I swear, half the time I make these videos, I end up learning a bunch of stuff I never knew. These are like mini history lessons, but a lot less formal and probably not entirely accurate. But that's why these windmills are number 5. 4. Number 4 are the Agamon Mills windmills in the Tirisful Glades. And these windmills are a little banged up. I'd say they've been through quite a bit, but they still look pretty cool. In fact, the Agamon Mills has some pretty interesting history. According to the WoW Wiki, it was a vast windmill network once controlled by the Agamon family in northern Tirisful Glades. The mills were lost to the Scourge, the family was slain, and the entire residence was claimed by the undead. The mills are perhaps the largest Scourge outpost in the Tirisful region. Another cool little fact is that the windmills of the Agamon Mills appeared in the background of the opening cinematic for World of Warcraft behind the undead warlock. So although these windmills are banged up, they're falling apart, they got blades missing, they got things boarded up, they're still some of the oldest, most well-known windmills in the game, and they fit the zone aesthetic perfectly of the Tirisful Glades. And that's why the Agamon Mills windmills are number 4. 3. Number 3 are the Thunderbluff windmills, and these are actually the windmills that inspired me to make this pointless top 10, because I was in Thunderbluff and I was like, dude, those are some cool windmills, right? You got the big eagle head. I just keep saying eagle for a lot of these birds. I think it's eagle. I don't know. It could be a lot of different birds, but what I love about these windmills is they're so high up, right? Like they're already on top of Thunderbluff, but then they're on top of these big, tall buildings, and it just makes me think, how did the Tauren get up here to build all these, right? Like, did they just have some really big ladders and they went up here? Like, they had to build that big totem pole back there too. I don't know. I don't know how Tauren did all this. Is like figuring out how they built the pyramids. Also, if you talk to the Bluff Watchers, which are the guards of Thunderbluff, they'll tell you about engineering, and they'll say, you must be looking for Palehoof, the engineering trainer who keeps our elevators and windmills in working order. Find him upon the lower rise. So Engineer Palehoof's the one that knows how everything here works, but I feel like he's not going to spill his secrets. And it's probably better that way. But back to the main point, they got a lot of windmills, and I like them. And that's why they're number 3. 2. Number 2 are the Stormsong Valley windmills, and these windmills look like they're straight out of the Netherlands. Like, just the aesthetic, the vibe here in Stormsong Valley, like the construction of these windmills just looks phenomenal. Like Battle for Azeroth, again, I say this in all these pointless top 10s, as much as people disliked it, it was an unbelievable expansion for the art team. Like, I think Battle for Azeroth maybe has some of my favorite art and graphics in World of Warcraft. Like, it is just phenomenal. And these windmills are no exception. Just the construction of them, the tiny little details, even the inside of the windmill is pretty cool. It just feels like everything about these windmills are perfectly designed. In fact, I even considered putting these windmills at number 1, but I ended up putting them at number 2 because there was one windmill that just blew me away. No pun intended. Maybe slightly intended, but we'll get to that next, and that's why the Stormsong Valley windmills are number 2. 1. And number 1 is the giant Twin Peaks windmill, and I love this windmill. Just the fact that it is built out of dragon wings is kind of insane. Like, the Horde were like, you know what? We need a massive windmill. What are we gonna make it out of? We could make it out of metal. We can make it out of wood, like all this stuff. They're like, nah, dude, let's make it out of dragon wings. Like, how insane is that? Like, it is, and it's so huge that it just like overtakes the entire area. Like wherever you're sitting, wherever you are in the zone, you look up and you see that windmill and you're like, shit, dude. That's a big ass dragon wing windmill. Also, a little noted detail, these are red dragon wings. I don't know if that means anything to anybody. I don't know enough about the lore, but whatever it is, this probably wouldn't go over well in Dragonflight. Can you imagine like some of the people from Dragonflight come in here and you just see that and you're just like, ah. Either way, that's why the Twin Peaks windmill is number 1. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this episode of Pointless Top 10. If you want more Pointless Top 10s, I mentioned Pointless Top 10 houses in the middle of nowhere earlier. You go check that one out. Or if you want some more random structural stuff, go watch Elevators. Okay? Okay. See ya.